What up, everybody? Coming to you live from my parents' house. We got episode 27 here of the Changavi Show. I am Changavi himself. That's not my first name, that's my last name. So for those of you that are curious, yes, it is my last name. My first name is Anuj. Hello, for those of you that are new, my name is Anuj Changavi. My show is named after me. Welcome. And yeah, glad to have everybody here. We got a packed show today, so I want to get right into it. But first, before we get into the actual meat of the show, I figured I would tell you guys how is Anuj doing? How is he doing? You know, with his newfound fame and just everything that's been going on recently. No, I'm kidding. Um, I'm not famous yet. We are currently, a year, it's almost been a year and a half since I started podcasting, and I'm not famous yet, so that's cool. I might never be famous, but that's fine. I don't care. How am I doing? I'm doing all right. The past couple weeks have been pretty, uh, they've been pretty tough in that like school is at that point where it's like about to end, but not, and you have a bunch of assignments that you haven't finished and are kind of just sitting there. So having to finish those assignments while also balancing it with podcast content and taking this way more seriously is definitely a challenge in itself. Um, in terms of everything else in life, though, like I can't complain. Mental health is pretty good. Uh, haven't had any anxiety episodes as of recently, other than like the normal anxieties that come with living a day to day life as a human being. I don't know. It hasn't been too crazy a month. It hasn't been crazy in a good way. It hasn't been crazy in a bad way. March so far has, they say it comes in like a lamb and out like a lion or some shit. I think that's the way it goes, but I don't know. It came in like a lamb and it's looking like it's going to come out like a lamb unless this month like dramatically changes my life. But I highly doubt that. Been a solid month. Can't complain. So far, been putting out a lot more content. I hope you guys have been enjoying that content though. If you have been, feel free to DM me, feel free to send me a message, feel free to like it. I kind of like to see assurance that like what I'm doing is good. So even if you tell me like this was solid or this was mid or this was trash, like I appreciate that. Because it kind of tells me, yo, okay, maybe I did something good here or I did something shitty here, or maybe I should never do that again. But it gives you good ideas because as a creator, like, you got to try a bunch of new shit, throw it at the wall, see what sticks. So I don't know if you guys see anything in particular that sticks out and you want me to know about it, I would appreciate that. And if not, that's cool too. But yeah, that in terms of other announcements, yeah. So I figured out on Anchor, which is like the site that I use to host my podcast, that you can send voice messages. It's kind of cool. So you have to click on my website, which is linked down below in the link tree. So you click on the website and there's like a way that you can click send a voice message. And so the viewers can send me voice messages and I can react to them and respond to them on the air, which is kind of cool. So if you have any thoughts on any of the stuff we're discussing and you want to vocalize that and not show your face, that would be absolutely fantastic. I would highly appreciate that. And I would just love it as a fan to like interact with you guys via voice to voice. It feels way more personal and personable than, me reading TikTok comments that are telling me to go live in my mom's basement for the rest of my life. And, that I'm just, a lot of not so nice names, but nonetheless, voice messages are a thing. And so you can just go to my website and they're right there, like on the description where it says like the Changavi Show. It's got the little description about what the show is. You could just click the voice message button and then hit voice and then send me a voice message about any topic, about anything, about life. Just make sure it's kind of appropriate. Don't be a fucking idiot and try to like get me canceled or some shit. I probably won't put it up on the air then. So, it's a lose-lose for the both of us at that point. But if you guys are interested in that, that is also there. In addition, there's also another button that says listener support. I asked for this a while back, and I feel bad, man, for asking for listener support because I don't want to take your guys' money. That's not who I am. I'm not going to be like, yo, take my, I want to take your money, bro. But like, it would greatly help me out. I'm kind of broke still. So buying podcast equipment and all of these things is definitely a challenge. Especially like the top of the line stuff. So any donation you guys have, you guys can throw it up. It's on my website again. It says like leave a donation, listener support. I believe what they have on Anchor is monthly subscriptions. So I don't really like that shit. I don't want you giving me money every month. So what I might do is I'll probably link my Venmo at the bottom of this, and I'll also put up like my Venmo in other places. So it's easy for you guys to reach. If you guys want to tip me for doing a good job, or you want to request me money for Panda Express, nonetheless, both of those options will be available to you. So I'll put my Venmo up everywhere if you guys want to just donate and send me money. If you like that type of stuff, if you're liking the content, if you want me to continue to throw this into the content, I promise you 100% of the funds will go to content and not to my Chipotle burrito fund. That's why I work. I work to get my Chipotle burritos. Okay, enough about me. This is bullshit. We got to talk about a lot of stuff. And one of the important things that's been happening recently in sports that's been very much talked about is the MLB lockout, particularly here in the United States. So the MLB lockout, right? You guys, there's a lot of people out there that really don't like this headline, right? And it's very unimportant actually to a lot of people, because a lot of people are like, bro, it's baseball. It's like the least important out of the American sports right now. Why should we care? So let me pitch it to you, right? Let's pretend like I am the news agency and you're the news producer who's like, why should we air this story? Let me pitch you why this story is interesting. If you like business, there are a lot of people out there. I know there are a lot of people that listen to this podcast who really like business, and they like negotiations, and they watch Succession on HBO Max, and they think they can be the next corporate America family, right? If you like business, if you like negotiations, you like a little bit of drama mixed in there, I think the MLB lockout's a pretty interesting story if you dig into the real deep delves of it. And but the fact is simple, right? There's just so many people out there who are so uninterested by this story, because it's like, why should I give a shit about a bunch of billionaire owners and business people who are arguing with the millionaire athletes who are going to be fine regardless of what happens, right? It's millionaire athletes versus billionaire owners. Most people in America are like, dude, I'm working 3 jobs. Why the fuck should I care about some baseball player getting to play a child's game, that I send my kid to go play in Little League? Why does this matter? True, 100%. And this is a point I've seen going around on Twitter. It's millionaire athletes versus billionaire owners. But not really. If you look deep into it, there are a lot of people who kind of don't make the millionaire athlete money or the billionaire owner money that are affected by this MLB lockout. There are so many guys who are making super limited salaries because they're grinding it out in the minor leagues to try to break into the major leagues. There's a bunch of stadium employees who are without jobs. And there's a bunch of people in the middle who kind of work for the MLB whose jobs are basically at stake at this point, because if the season doesn't happen, let's be real, they're fired too. So let's talk about this whole thing, right? What is going on? It's a big situation. So let's break it. I want to break it down for all the non-sports fans, for the sports fans, for everybody who's here. Okay. So what is a lockout? Let's define a lockout for a second. A lockout is basically when owners are literally locking down everything related to the particular sport. So a lockout can happen in the NBA. It's happened in the NFL. I don't know if it's happened in the NHL, but it's happened in the NBA. It's happened in the NFL. And it's happened in the MLB multiple times. This is the second lockout that we've had. And so lockouts are basically when owners lock down everything related to the sport. Players can't rehab in the team facilities. You can't practice with the team if you're a player. You basically can't have any organized team events sponsored by the team. You can't hang out with your coaches. You can't get advice, anything. You can't do anything basically related to your sport unless it's on your own time and through your own dollar. So unless you're a millionaire athlete who's making a shit ton of money, which, I mean, a lot of Major League Baseball players do make a lot of money, you can't really play the sport with your team. So there's no real team organized activities going down in regards to that. So strikes and lockouts happen every so often in sports because there's this thing called the collective bargaining agreement. And the collective bargaining agreement is this agreement between the players and the owners that kind of agrees on the various rules of the game. There'll be like little adjustments to that, the schedule, logistics, various things within. It's kind of like the Constitution, right? Except it's updated every 4 years. And so when the CBA is agreed on, the players and the owners sign it, and it's like, okay, cool. We can agree to this agreement. We go by this agreement for 4 years, and then we update it. And it has to be signed by a certain date. If it's not signed by a certain date, oftentimes you go into a lockout, which basically means the MLB has a work stoppage. You don't work, the whole organization basically just gets shut down. So that could go for the MLB, the NBA, and the NFL. And it's happened relatively recently too, because the most recent lockout was back in 2011 with the NBA and the NFL. And the NBA had a lockout season in the early 2010s, and the NFL had one, I believe, in 2010 or 2011 as well. So lockouts do happen. It's not like this is like a super rare occurrence, but lockouts happen and they're usually resolved before the season. So you don't tend to sacrifice any games. But for baseball, the last lockout they had was detrimental to the sport. Absolutely detrimental. The last time they were locked out was in 1994, and that basically led to baseball losing a bunch of games, owners losing revenue, fans losing interest in the sport, a lot of bad things. And it eventually, came back because of Sonia Sotomayor, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But the whole point is, like, if you're a sports executive, if you're a sports businessman, if you're an athlete, if you're a fan, you don't want to lose games, right? Then you lose the product. Then it's just a whole ripple effect of, basic economics of, like, when you aren't putting your best quality product out there, like, why should anybody pay attention? So what happened to cause this particular lockout here in 2022? So, like I said, the collective bargaining agreement between the players and the executives expired, but there wasn't a new one written and there wasn't a new one that could be agreed upon. So they tried to, talk it out and agree on this new collective bargaining agreement by the certain deadline, but that did not happen. And so players and the owners, they're continuing to negotiate, but they couldn't come up with a deal. So basically what happened was the commissioner, Rob Manfred, who's the commissioner of Major League Baseball, basically said that since they couldn't come to an agreement by a certain date, that they were going to cancel the first couple weeks of the season, pushing back the season a couple weeks. Actually, today was another deadline, and the players and the owners could not come to another agreement, so the season got pushed back another couple more weeks. So theoretically, it could get pushed back and pushed back and pushed back to the point where the season could eventually potentially get canceled. But it's never, ever, ever in the history of professional sports gotten to that point. But baseball pundits, writers, everybody really seems to think that right now at this moment, it could get to that point because of the fact that the owners and the players just are not agreeing upon everything. So what aren't they agreeing upon? Honestly, there's a lot that they're not agreeing upon, and there's a lot of really little technicalities and rules that I personally, as someone who is not involved in the baseball world and really can't talk about baseball at like a high level, can tell you exactly what's going on within the game. You should probably listen to some sports radio or like ESPN or like watch a documentary about the specific rules. But I'm here to give you a general overview of what's going on. So the collective bargaining agreement, the players and the executives are basically going and butting heads and trying to figure this out. But since the start of the negotiations, both sides have continued to move further apart on a lot of the issues that they were having within the collective bargaining agreement. So you are having people lose more, like you're just, the sides are getting further and further apart. But what do these issues really stem upon, right? Like, what are the issues? What is the fundamental thing that these players are fighting for? So the players are pissed because the fact is, and it's statistically been proven, that in baseball, players are getting paid less and less, even though the teams and the league is making way more money than it used to. So basically, the players are like, we're getting gypped out of money because you guys, the owners, are hoarding it all for yourselves, and the league, you're hoarding it all for yourselves too. So it's kind of that fundamental sort of butting of heads that's going on, and it's been going on. And so the players are pissed. And you may, like I said, this is where like it comes into the fan perspective of like, why the fuck should I care? These are players who are due to make $8 million next year. Why do I give a shit? Frankly, you're right. There is like, they'll live, regardless if the MLB gets canceled this year, they will probably be fine. But like I said, the fight isn't necessarily about the millionaire athletes. It's the people in the middle who are involved within baseball that are kind of caught in the middle of this mess. Okay. So, like I said, I was talking about Sonia Sotomayor, and basically Barack Obama coined Sonia Sotomayor as the justice that began baseball, that kind of allowed baseball to have a new revolution of sorts. So Sonia Sotomayor, who is now a Supreme Court justice, but back then I think she was just a circuit court justice, actually saved the last strike way back in 1994, like I said. And basically what she said is, I think eventually the whole agreement and stuff went to the court. And what she said was, we're going to play baseball under the old collective bargaining agreement, and we're going to go. And effectively, that old bargaining agreement went into play, and so baseball was able to continue. But in 94, it was the same situation as we have now, where the players are on one side and the owners are on the other side, and there looks like there's going to be no compromise, and there's going to be no possible way that we are going to get to the point where the issue itself is going to be, resolved. So that's not going to happen. Okay. And like I said, there's a bunch of complicated technicalities and rules within this whole lockout that make very limited sense to me. And I'm not a baseball expert. I don't even know the sport all that well. So I can't tell you exactly what's going on within the CBA and all that, maybe as I would be able to if it was the NFL or the NBA or something like that. So I don't really know. A lot of people but the thing is, what makes this situation so interesting is that it's the biggest business deadlock. That's the best way to describe it. It's a true deadlock, and no side is willing to come forward and sacrifice it, because the players are like, we've had enough. Back in 94, the owners got their own way. They got to go back to the old collective bargaining agreement, collect more and more and more money, and we've been continuing to do this. And now the tensions have risen again. And we're at a point where we live in an era where it's a player empowerment era in sports. And not only in the MLB, but in the NBA and the NFL, players are controlling their destiny. They're controlling the amount of money they make, and they're constantly controlling where the money goes. And players want more freedom and more stake to do whatever is right within the league. And frankly, the owners of baseball being one of the more traditional leagues, I would say, out of the NBA and the NFL, baseball is definitely the one with the tightest leash on its players, is unwilling to let go of that leash. They want to keep the control that they have, and they want to continue to gain the money that they have. So it's a situation where there's really just a rarity of no compromise. And if there is a compromise, it's going to be historical, because we're going to have to see someone really step up and see potentially where the whole thing kind of breaks down. Because it's going to be really interesting to see if there were ever potentially to be a compromise. Everyone's been saying it would get resolved, but then opening day got canceled, and then a couple weeks got canceled, and then everyone was like, okay, that was a real wake up call that the owners and the owners and the players needed. They're going to get something done. Action is going to go into place, and then boom, again, Manfred announced today 2 more weeks of the season canceled. So I think at the end of the day, it's not, the executives don't really lose much. The players, the big players of the MLB, the Max Scherzers, the big time pitchers, the big time, Chris Bryant's, Albert. I mean, I'm just trying to think of big time, Ronald Acuna Jr. These guys, they're not going to lose money. Okay. They're going to continue to be profitable athletes. People are going to recognize who they are. Vlad Guerrero Jr., whoever you are. But who loses is the employees of the MLB. It's the employees of the MLB and the teams, and the employees of the teams, because if this season gets canceled, they're out of a job. They're basically people who depend on paycheck to paycheck. If you're a stadium employee, you don't get paid much more than minimum wage, I don't think. You're doing it because you love the team. You're doing it because you love the city. You're doing it because you want to be integrated within that culture, and you work those stands and those grueling days during the summer when it's hot as shit outside and you have to sell peanuts at the baseball game. Those are the people who lose out in this situation, because the MLB is to have games. Their stadiums are locked up. It's a lockout. You can't go and play. And those are the people that lose, which is the saddest part. And I think that's reminiscent of society today, where it's oftentimes the poorer classes that are losing versus, the people who are actually having this big fight. And the sad part is, I was reading an article and someone was like, stadium workers and MLB employees in general had to deal with COVID. And so those shut down the stadiums and there was limited fans. And then, you got a full season of play last year, which was awesome. And then now they have to deal with the lockout. And so it's just been a rough couple of years here for the MLB. Every time I turn it on sports radio, people are just constantly shit bagging the MLB. They're saying like, this is the worst league in sports. Like, this is incredibly just terrible for the sport. This is not working out. So it's going to be interesting to see like where this whole thing develops, how it all kind of shakes out, because it's truly an interesting business case study. I bet you that in business classes in MBA programs, like they study lockouts, they study situations where there is a deadlock between two parties of a business. But yeah, we're not in fucking business school because that shit is useless. I'm sorry to all my MBAs out there, but come on, a master's of business administration. You paid $100,000 for that, probably, if you went to a good school. Would you rather have $100,000 or a college? Okay, we're not going to get into that whole situation. Listen, let's transition though, right? We talked about the MLB lockout. We talked about the crazy situation that's going on over there. Let's kind of calm the tone down a little bit. I used to have a segment on the show where I would talk about upcoming artists, and I would do it really often. So I did it, I believe the last time, or like I would do it pretty regularly. So I would do it like every other episode, and I just kind of throw in an upcoming artist segment and be like, oh, these are my artists that I'm really liking like this week, or really liking this month, or in this era, or in this time frame. And the last time I did that, I think, was in August. So I really neglected the upcoming artist segment. I thought it was something I was going to do a lot more often. But honestly, I've neglected the music segment of the show for quite some time now. But let's talk about my upcoming artist now, because, you know, it's never too late to bring back an old segment. This was a fun segment. It's been kind of slow for music. Honestly, there hasn't been like any really big name artists besides like the Kanye West, like Donda 2 on the stem player type thing, which we did talk about. And then, you know, I talked a little bit about like TikTok musicians and Stacey Bryan and this, that, and the other, and that was cool. But like, there hasn't really been a lot of big albums that have dropped. So, you know, as me, Anuj, someone who likes to discover new music and discover new people, I've been on Instagram, I've been on TikTok, and honestly, Instagram and TikTok are becoming my new favorite places to find artists, because this is where they post a little bit of their content. You get little snippets, and then you can kind of dig into their Spotify and other places to find like their deeper catalogs of music. So I have 3 artists I want to talk about today. All sorts of genres, really. 3 different genres, 3 different artists. So let's talk about them. The first artist I want to talk about is this guy by the name of Nana. I've been following this guy for, I would say, about 2 years, or not 2 years, like a year and a half. I first saw him on TikTok, but not like him on TikTok. Like, it wasn't his post. It was someone posting about him, saying that like he was an upcoming rapper in Crenshaw, and he had some really good music. And I checked him out then, and I really liked this one song called Heaven and Hennessy. And so I kind of cataloged it. And then I went back to him recently, and he's just been continuing to put out great music. So a little bit about him. He's a kid from, I believe, like he's from South Central Los Angeles, so like Crenshaw/Compton, that general area. He's one of the new rappers that I recognize, and I'm like, yo, he's not like this new age of like Lil Baby, Gunna, like Nav, you know, where they just kind of do the same thing, the Baby, where they kind of make the same tunes over and over again, and they don't really have any substantial lyrics for the most part. Like, there's no song that you're sitting there like, wow, this is like lyrically just absolute genius. This guy is the opposite of that. He's very much like, his beats are very organic. They're very instrumental. They're not synthesized. They're not like made in the computer lab or anything. It feels like they're just pure drums. They're pure instruments. It's pure like bars coming from stuff that he writes down. It's like old school rap. His parents are West African immigrants, so he definitely does have an interesting background and an interesting perspective to rap about. And he's more, like I said, he's more that old school rapper than comparatively to his generation of rappers, which has been very party based, mumble rap, and all that. He's not a mumble rapper by any means. Like I said, Heaven and Hennessy is definitely a bop, in my opinion. Certified banger on the Changavi Show, Heaven and Hennessy. And I listened to the song recently called Kings Boulevard 2, which I really enjoyed as well. The beats definitely give me very much like Kendrick, J. Cole vibes, that sort of production in terms of that. Like I said, just unique organic instruments and stuff like that. He has a very good storytelling sense. Like I said before, it feels like he's actually taking the art of hip hop. You know, I feel like there are a lot of artists out there that in this day and age that kind of just rap about parties, girls, and drugs, right? And those are kind of the three things that they really stick to, and that's their lane. And I have no hate towards that because those songs can be great in specific moments. But I think when you have a unique storytelling sense and you can talk about your life and you can rap about events that are happening and tell a story through your song, that's when, okay, I think you are a different artist, right? Where you have the ability to do that. And the cool part is he has shown versatility. So he has done kind of more synthesized tracks like I talked about, especially recently. He has a song called Run the World on kind of a more like poppy type beat. And he did really well on that. He also has a freestyle that's kind of going pretty viral on Instagram, if I don't say so myself. It's caught a little bit of heat, caught a little bit of attention. Guy can rap. I'm glad to see he's getting some sort of recognition. He's definitely going to be a fun one to follow, particularly because he does remind me of that sort of older generation of rappers, and particularly fans like myself, people who are fans of rap and like hip hop. Really will like this guy. You can find him on Instagram at Nana is King on all socials, Instagram, Twitter, I believe. But Instagram mainly, that's where I found him, and he has a lot of stuff on there. And on Spotify, you just search up NANA. He comes up. You can go through his catalog. Definitely go do that. If you want some good storytelling and rap and kind of a sound that will remind you of like it's crazy to say that like Kendrick Lamar's like Good Kid, Mad City's old school now, Jesus. But like, if you want that more of like the Kendrick Cole classic hip hop sound with maybe a little bit of meaning and some good stories, go listen to this guy Nana. He's great. He's more of a Kendrick and a Cole than a Playboy Cardi. But like I said, if you're into more of that Kendrick Cole type vibe, definitely give this guy Nana a check out as well. Second artist I want to talk about, I found these guys on TikTok. I actually found them because of my brother. My brother, back in December, sent me this TikTok that was going viral at the time of this particular snippet that this band released. And the song was called Wasting Whiskey. And it was very like country based. And I listened to it for the first time. And I was like, ew, like, I don't like this. This is like country. And this is the James Barker band. Listen. Everybody's going to be like, oh, they're country, like Anuj. What are you talking about? Why do you support these redneck artists? Hold on, homies. Hold the fuck up, okay? These guys are actually really fucking good. They're really good, okay? They're funniest part of this whole situation is they're not American, so you can't call them rednecks. They're Canadian. And that's pretty insane. Like I was looking at their origins and it was like founded Ontario. And I was like, wait, Ontario, California? And it's like, no, Ontario, Canada. And I was like, what? No way. I was like, what the fuck? That's kind of crazy that I didn't even know Canadian country fucking existed. And so their website basically says like they were four friends that, met in college, presumably. I came up with that part, that wanted to make it big in country. So they moved out to Nashville and just tried to like get a record deal. And here we are, like 6 years later, they're hella popular in Canada. They're all over the country radio in Canada. And they're not mainstream. They have like followings on TikTok because of that snippet and a couple other snippets that have just gone viral. But their music is really fucking good. I've listened to quite a few songs by them, and I really like their songs. They have a few songs that I absolutely love. Keep It Simple, and I recommend everybody listens to these songs. Keep It Simple, Over and Over Again. And then the Wasting Whiskey snippet on TikTok. If you get the chance, go listen to that Wasting Whiskey snippet. I didn't like that snippet at first, but then I went back and listened to it, and I was like, holy shit, this is kind of good. So I really liked it. And then, but they're hella popular in Canadian country, which is this super niche demographic of like, who the hell listens to Canadian country music? And I did not think I would be talking about Canadian country music on episode 27 of this podcast when it was in its origination. So that's kind of cool. But they definitely don't necessarily stick to the country roots. They're very much based in the way I like to describe them is they're very based in pop as well. So they have a lot of songs. They have the song called Keep It Simple, which is it sounds very poppy. Their guitar on that song really reminds me of the Black Keys. That's really where I kind of like to describe them. If you want to describe them as like an American pop band, they definitely do have some Black Keys vibes going about them. And it's really it's like When I say they're country, they are country. They definitely do have the country twang in their voice and the country style of music, but it's not full on redneck, like putting on the banjo type thing. It's like, let's play electric guitar, sing with a little bit of a country twang, and also include, beers and girls, right, in our songs. And that's really what they are. Definitely more white boy music for sure. If I don't say so myself. And I think personally, like, everybody is gonna sit here and just like fast forward through this segment because, like, oh, you're talking about country? What is wrong with you? Country ain't that bad, okay, to begin with. There's gonna be a lot of people out there that are like, I'm never listening to you again. You said country isn't that bad. What is wrong with you? Yeah, country isn't that bad, dog. I don't know what people are tripping. People just trip. They just come up with preconceived notions and then they don't like actually like go and listen to stuff. I'm not the biggest fan of like old school country, right? I'm not like a huge Dolly Parton fan or anything. I can't lie to you, but I really do like this James Barker band. I like their vibe. I like their energy. It's definitely a really good band, and I think they should be more popular than they are. And I think my opinion is powerful because I don't really like country all that much. I'm not well versed in the genre. The only like real country artist I knew like before 2021 was like Carrie Underwood. I like know of Blake Shelton and Miranda Lambert, but they're not like, I don't know their catalogs or anything, or like Faith Hill, Tim McGraw. Like, I just know the names. I don't really like know exactly. Yeah. I don't really exactly know who they are, so to speak. And their songs are definitely more of like having fun. It feels very like young and hip and vibe type music rather than the music that maybe you would expect of country music of like, we're drinking Miller Lights and hanging out on the front porch, right? It's definitely not that. It's definitely more of like, we're going to hang out, we're going to go party, we're going to, we're going to talk about love, we're going to talk about breakups. And it's more Taylor Swift country than it is Miranda Lambert, Tim McGraw country is what I would say. And definitely has its modern influences. I would highly recommend to anybody, if you're a country fan, if you're a pop fan, especially if you're a country fan, if you're a pop fan, if you're someone who just likes bops, James Barker Band, man. James Barker Band is real good. And that Wasting Whiskey snippet on TikTok, a damn. That was pretty fire. Wasting Whiskey. I cannot wait for that song to come out. And when that comes out, I'm blasted like 100 times. It's going to be on every show. It's going to be all my TikTok sounds. I'm telling you, I love that song. I love that snippet. It's really, really good. But definitely go check out James Barker Band. They're my second band that I'd tell you have to go check out. My third artist that I say that you should check out, especially since I found him like a week ago, Grant Schaefer. So who the hell is Grant Schaefer? I found this kid basically through TikTok again, and he's got a snippet that's been going viral, kind of like the James Barker Band. And it's this like very guitar-y, poppy snippet. It's got some summer bounce to it. And he hasn't released the snippet. He says he's going to soon, but I think he's just really trying to hype up the snippet. A lot of people are very hyped over it. But the best way to describe this man is he's white boy pop mixed with indie music. That's really what he is. That's kind of how I like to describe it. And I've done a little bit of listening with his music, and I think my two favorites that I like so far are Santa Cruz and Seeing Colors. From what I checked out, I also like Days as well. His story is cool because it starts out with him, dropping out of whatever he was doing at home. Yay, love it. Dropping out. He was basically in Florida and he dropped out of whatever that was and drove in his car and moved all the way out to LA. A little old school Hollywood dream, baby, to try and make it in music. And so far he's been pretty successful. He's already verified on TikTok and shit. So that's got to count for something. And anyone who has a song named Santa Cruz is a vibe. His music is very vibey. I feel like that's a way to describe it. A lot of guitar, a lot of like pop influences, a little bit of indie here and there. Beach day type music, summer. It's definitely more summery music, beach music than it is like winter guitar sitting in front of the fire is how I would describe it. It's not for everyone. There are a lot of people that would probably listen to this guy's music and be like, there's 18 other artists that sound like him. Totally. I understand that. But the kid is young. I really love the way, but I also really love the way he's marketing himself. This is, I think, what I love more than his music is the way that he's been marketing himself. The way this guy has been marketing himself is he's posting TikToks of him just playing the guitar in pretty California, as we all know, just vibing and with this little snippet. And he's done a lot of like POVs where he basically describes like POV. You find the song of the summer 2 years before it comes out, and you could be part of my day one fan club. Just like trying to really like create parasocial relationships and also just really trying to create bonds with the people that he is trying to attract. And it's gotten a lot of attention on TikTok. A lot of kids are connecting to that. They're like, yo, I want to be a part of this. And the snippet sounds good. It's definitely a vibe. It definitely relates to a younger generation. I can see it. And it's been hitting. It's just like the TikToks have been hitting, and the way he's marketing has really done a good job. And you know what blueprint he's following? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Stacey Ryan blueprint that was suggested right here on the Changavi Show, episode 20, for those of you that don't remember. I was right. I was right. Dude, that's not, I bet that sounded fire. I'm going to listen to that fucking snippet again of me singing that. But let me make it clear again. I was right. Anyway, that's the one take I got right, and I'm just like gonna flex it for life. But this Grant Schaefer kid, he's good, man. I like his vibe. I think there are honestly quite a few people that might like the way he goes about his music. I really like the way he goes about his marketing. His music is pretty good too. And with these three artists, I think the thing that they have in common is that none of them are mainstream yet. None of them are like huge. None of them are like holy shit. Like they're like big. They're not. None of them are big artists yet. And so this is like a really big opportunity. Like I always look at like when I see like an indie artist, I'm like, this is a huge opportunity for me to get in on the ground floor. Like they may have done like little projects, they may have like 1 million streams on Spotify on one song, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're mainstream, right? There are a lot of Brandi Carlile has 4 million streams on one song. Do you consider Brandi Carlile to be mainstream? I don't think so. But she's getting nominated for Emmys. I don't even think she's mainstream yet. I guess she's mainstream to a certain community. But mainstream is like Doja Cat, bro. Like I feel like none of these three artists are at that level. They're also pretty small. I'd say Nana is the smallest out of the three. James Barker Band and Grant Schaefer are like big on TikTok. So I don't know how that necessarily translates to like who they are as artists. I know for Grant Schaefer, he's only got like 60,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, and I think James Barker Band's like 75K. So they're all pretty small. But the thing is, when these snippets come into the real song, Stacey Ryan in the first week of Please Don't Text Me When You're Drunk came out, got like 9 million streams on like that song. And boom, she signed with Island Records. And now I would consider, if Stacey Ryan drops an album, for it to be pretty big and for her to market it well, because she's big now. They're going to turn into I feel like Grant and James Barker in particular, the James Barker Band in particular, when Wasting Whiskey comes out, I really have a feeling that shit is going to blow up. It's so good. It's so good. Like I think it's going to be hugely overplayed. But I think it's definitely following. Like I think everyone is sort of trying to follow that Stacey Ryan blueprint and become that TikTok musician of like, yo, I want to be that person who blows up on TikTok and has that song of the summer, or has that song that everyone is like, yo, I'm using that in my TikTok sound. That's the new way to blow up now. But anyway, those are my upcoming artists: Nana, James Barker Band, and Grant Schaefer. All 3 different genres, 3 different vibes. Got music in there for everybody. And we got a bunch of other topics to get to. So let's do that now. Listen, we talked a little bit about music. We talked a little bit about vibes. Now I want to talk about a really interesting topic that I have today. Let's talk about chicken. Chicken. I'm serious. Let's have a conversation about chicken and Sean and Amelia, right? 2 white names and chicken. Let's have a conversation about the American nuclear family. No, I'm kidding. You'll kind of see what this topic means. But I want to talk about chicken for a second. I genuinely do. Because why is chicken so popular? Okay. Bear with me. Okay. I'm going to tell you guys, bear with me. This is going to all build to something. It's kind of crazy to think that chicken has become the most popular meat in the world. Fun fact, my parents are vegetarian, but chicken did come from India, parts of Southeast Asia and South Asia, aka India. And it was very popular in India before it was even relevant here in the Americas. Actually, chicken was an invasive species that came to the East Coast through the explorers and all of these things, and all of that. So let's really talk about what chicken is before we get into the Sean and Amelia part of the segment. Chicken is the most popular meat in America right now. What's that reason? What is the reason that chicken is popular in this country? Let's think about that. What is the reason? For me, I think it's the rise of the chicken sandwich. And the relevance of chicken in pop culture is taking America by storm. It is. It truly is. And here's the theory. Here's my theory. This is kind of far-fetched, little tinfoil hat theory, but let's ride with me for a second. I think with the rise of African American culture and rap and hip hop and all of these things just really coming to the light right now, chicken has gone with that. Chicken, I mean, when you think of soul food, what's the first thing you think of? Fried chicken. What's the first thing you think of when you think of uh, oftentimes urban culture? Chicken. Like immigrants, what's the main meat they use? Chicken. Chicken was considered for a long time to be cheap meat. And honestly, in my childhood, back in 2004, 2005, 2006, was chicken this popular? I don't think it was that popular. I really don't think. I remember the big thing when I was a kid was like burgers, pepperoni pizza. Like now it's all about chicken. I kid you not. And this is just in America, right? Because if you talk about countries like England, chicken exploded there back in the 1920s when chicken tikka masala was hitting England and Indian food just became like a thing. And everyone was like, whoa, this is so good. Chicken tikka masala. Oh my God, it's so spicy, but the flavors explode in my mouth, right? That's what they were thinking back then in the 1920s. Sorry if you're British, by the way. That's a beautiful accent, though, in my opinion. But Americans, this is kind of crazy. I was reading the statistic. Americans consume 90 pounds of chicken a year, okay? So clearly, it means that chicken is a superior meat right now, and people are eating a lot of fucking chicken. They're eating chicken. Given the choice between all sorts of other meats, they're picking chicken. 90 pounds of that a year, kind of crazy. And listen, chicken was pretty irrelevant there for a while, okay? There's this guy by the name of Robert Baker that probably created all your favorite chicken foods, okay? He made all these different chicken products, and I'm kidding you not. This is all real. I did a lot of research into this. There's this man by the name of Robert Baker, and he created all the best chicken products in the world, all in a lab in Cornell. I'm talking chicken nuggets, chicken burgers, chicken apple sausages, chicken whatever basic chicken product you use today, probably created by this man, Robert Baker. And it basically made chicken explode within pop culture. It made chicken explode within pop culture. Absolutely. And the thing is, the American government around that same time also started to release studies saying that beef and pork were leading to disease and high obesity rates and all of these things, which is ironic because we still are one of the most obese countries in the world. So the consumption of chicken and fish went through the roof. Went through the fucking roof. Okay. Listen. What does this have to what is the Sean and Amelia part of this segment? What does this have to do with pop culture food? Bro, what does this have to do with pop culture? Why did you just lecture me about chicken for 5 minutes? Okay, I had this question lingering in the back of my head. Just lingering in the back of my head. Why are some of the most popular interview shows in all of the world about chicken? So let's talk about Hot Ones and Chicken Shop Date. What a transition. I'm a fucking genius. Thank you very much. So now you guys probably know what the Sean and the Amelia are. For those of you that don't know, I'm going to be talking about Sean Evans and Amelia De Moldenberg. Okay, let's start with Sean Evans for a second, right? So what is Hot Ones? This is Sean Evans' show. So to start, he's got a show called Hot Ones, this guy, Sean Evans, which here in America is immensely popular. I'm talking like 20, 30, 40 million views on YouTube on some of them. And what's the concept of the show? Basically, Sean Evans and a guest, usually a very high-profile celebrity. I'm talking Gary Vee, Hassan Minaj, Joel Embiid, Shaquille O'Neal, Gordon Ramsay. Like these, that's just a few to name who have been on his show. So him and a celebrity eat chicken wings together with that are spicier and spicier and spicier, as Sean Evans basically asks them immensely researched questions. So that's basically what the show is. And like I said, he's had a huge list of people, and what they do on the show is insane. I mean, considering the man is just a communications major from UIUC, he's kind of made it big. You know who else is a communications major? Not from UIUC, but from community college right now. Anuj Changavi, hi. Nice to meet you. But the thing about the interviews that Sean Evans does, and I think the celebrities really respect this, is that he does his homework. And when I talk about he does his homework, the process that Sean Evans goes through, there's like whole interviews on it. He goes through he makes like 20, 25, 30-page dossiers on each celebrity. He knows everything there is to know about them and more. And I think the people who interview with him, who eat these chicken wings, yes, they're uncomfortable, but at the same time, they respect his hustle. And the crazy part is he got this idea as just like a fun thing to do out of nowhere. They they were just like him and his buddy were just like brainstorming one day and they were like, what if we just have celebrities eat really hot spicy wings and answer our questions? And then they were like, wait, let's develop this idea more. And the reason I think why it worked is because I mean Sean Evans had worked for Complex before, which is like a pop culture kind of company where you write for stuff and you have contacts with celebrities, and his other buddy worked for First We Feast, and all of these different things like combined together. So they had a lot of celebrity connections, and that definitely helped. So people did come to them originally with the like with that. But he's definitely like his clout, I would say, within the pop culture community and within different sub communities of like sports and memes and different parts of pop culture have definitely exploded because of the interview, because of the interviews and the success that the interviews have had. Okay, so Amelia, right? So I think the thing that makes both Amelia and Sean really important is that they're different. Their interviews are different. And I'll get into Amelia later. I'll get into Amelia De Moldenberg in a second. Sean Evans's interview is so different than any other interview you see. I used to do interviews. I used to just interview guests and ask them questions. And I tried to make it different by putting in a central question. But I mean, in my opinion, I didn't think I was a really good interviewer. People thought I was pretty good. I didn't think I was that good. The thing is, with Sean Evans, what makes his interviews so good, he does the homework. I used to do the homework too. But the thing is, what's cool is not only does he do the homework, he has this whole element of uncomfortability and randomness with the spicy wings. You don't know how Shaquille O'Neal is going to react when he gets to the atomic wing. You don't know how they're going to react when he gets to the last dab, when he gets to that second to last sauce, which kicks at the end, right? You don't know. There's this element of randomness and this element of uncomfortability. Where does Amelia De Moldenberg have this element? Let's get into Amelia De Moldenberg for a second. Amelia De Moldenberg is the same exact way that Sean Evans is because she's super focused. So the way she got her start was she just really uber focused on the musician scene. And the way that she would just get interview contacts is through United, like she's from the UK, so she's from Britain. And the way she got her contact or her start was through grime music in Britain. But the thing about Chicken Shop Date, what's cool about it, in my opinion, two things. Number one, it's super fucking British, which I love, absolutely love. And number two, I think it's so cool that the interview is a date. It's a date. That's what it is. It's a date. But what do I mean by the show being really British? Hold on. I think the humor that that Amelia uses is hilarious. It's so dry. It's extremely sarcastic. And I think me, as being like an American, was very thrown off by it. The first interview of hers I ever watched was the Jack Harlow interview, or the Jack Harlow Chicken Shop Day interview. And I literally turned it off 3 minutes in, and I was like, what the fuck did I just watch? This was so confusing. Why is this girl such an asshole? But then like I did more research into like the design of the interviews and like really looked at her other stuff, and it's actually really fucking hilarious. And the thing about British humor is that it's super different, and it kind of opens up your mind to like this whole new perspective than what American humor would. And the whole design of Amelia's interviews is to like just put celebrities in their place in a lot of ways. Like, dude, you think you're on top of the world? Fuck you, Jack Harlow. I'm going to ask you if you know how to read. Like, just be out of pocket. And it's funny. It's really funny to watch. I highly recommend you watch Amelia De Moldenberg's interviews if you guys are into the Jack Harlow one in particular. I really enjoyed that one. But she has one with Ed Sheeran. She's got one with Justin Theroux, Daniel Kaluuya, the star of Get Out. A lot of different people. And I think what's the interesting element about it is it's all supposed to be on a date. So there's that tension, that underlying tension of like, oh my God, like this is a date. But at the same time, like she's interviewing me and it's so awkward. And there's just a lot of different elements like mentally at play. And I think that's really cool. And I think going back and watching her, I just notice how awkward she is on purpose to piss off celebrities. And the celebrities are so confused. They're like, what is going on? What is happening? And this has been 10 years in the works, and now she's really starting to hit her stride. Like she's getting really big name guests and stuff, which is cool. I don't think she's huge in America yet. I think she's really big in Great Britain, from what I've heard. Like people like treat her like she's awesome, and which she is, and she is big. And I think she's getting big in America because she did have this interview with Jack Harlow, and like I said, that's how I first saw her. But I feel like a lot of other people are. I was not on the Amelia De Moldenberg train. I pretty much forgot about her immediately. And then she kind of popped back up into my feed. Colin Samir did a video on her. I started thinking about her a lot more. And then I was like, oh shit, like she's kind of cool. She's kind of cool. And then I started watching more interviews and I was like, wow, like this is pretty good. this is pretty good. And Drake DM'd her about being on the show, and it may happen. She's been hinting at it for a while, but I think COVID hit and stuff. So, yeah. But, like, what is the point of Hot Ones and Amelia De Moldenberg and Chicken Shop Date and all of these things? Chicken Shop Date is freaking phenomenal, by the way. Go watch it. What is the point of these types of interviews? Where am I going with this? I feel like the element of making celebrities feel uncomfortable is something we need more with politicians. It's something we need more with elected leaders. I would love to see former President Barack Obama go on Hot Ones. I don't know about you, but I think, like, imagine Vladimir Putin, like, breaking down why he invaded Ukraine over eating the atomic wing. Like, I think, yeah, it would be funny, but also, like, I think it would bring out this element of, like, questioning and this element of, like, randomness that you wouldn't expect because you don't know. You don't even know how these guys are going to act, right? And I'm not saying like Vladimir Putin invading Ukraine was right. No, it wasn't. It was fucking wrong. But like, I think to see like a big time elected leader on Hot Ones would just be like break the internet, first of all. And second of all, I think it would just be very cool to see them in that uncomfortable environment because a lot of times politicians are in control of the environment that they're in, right? When Barack Obama goes on Meet the Press, he knows exactly what he's going to say. He knows the exact questions that Lester Holt is going to ask him. And he just goes down the list and it's very prepared. But you put celebrities out of their element, you put politicians out of their element, and suddenly you're forced to react to the situation that's happening around you. And that is what I think we as people want to see our politicians in. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit in a second with potentially World War III on the horizon. But I'm going to talk about all that in a second. But I would love to see Barack Obama on Chicken Shop Date. I think Amelia De Moldenberg would make him feel so fucking awkward. And I think that would like help not only humanize him as like a politician, but also like look at him or like him answering questions in a different light, and you get to see a different side of the way he thinks and the different side of the way that it works, because that's what interviews are supposed to be, right? Why do we watch interviews of athletes, our favorite celebrities? Because we want to see a different side of them. And putting athletes and politicians and celebrities and high profile figures in uncomfortable situations is the way to do that. That's why formats like Hot Ones, formats like Chicken Shop Date have blown up. And that's why the popularity of chicken in general has also blown up. Yes, Chicken, Sean, and Amelia. I tied it all together. Thank you very much. I'm a genius. No, that's all. It was fun, though. I hope you guys learned a little something about chicken, first of all. But also, Sean Evans and Amelia De Moldenberg are doing crazy things. Crazy cool things, in my opinion. And I just thought it would be worth highlighting those moments because I think what they're doing is very, very cool. And yeah. So shout out to those two. But to transition from interviewing politicians and talking about the way politicians are, let's go into what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, right? I know I've been hammering the story down people's throats, and people are like, I'm sick of this. Why do we have to talk about this every week on the news topic? I'm not going to talk about Russia, Ukraine. Relax. We're going to talk about the different element of it, because everyone is wondering, like, okay, listen, I get how you were saying that Russia and Ukraine is going on and could potentially have really big effects. 100%. And I'm with you on that. It will have big effects. But what are the ramifications on America? How exactly is it going to work with the US? I'm going to answer those questions for you right now. People are like, why does this matter for the US? And the answer is what we're going to talk about right now: China and Taiwan. So the reason I wanted to talk about China and Taiwan is basically it's, in my opinion, it's the next upcoming and sort of big conflict that's going to happen. And it's got a lot of similarities to this Russia and Ukraine conflict that's currently going on. So let's kind of set the scene here for a second. Taiwan is an island nation. It's off the coast of China's mainland, and the Chinese president, like Vladimir Putin has with Ukraine, has seemingly wanted to reunify Taiwan and China together for a really long time. Xi Jinping, who's the president of China, has said that something has to be done. That something has to be done with Taiwan, and that they want to basically see Taiwan eventually as a part of China. People in the West are concerned that if China does take over Taiwan, that they'll have access to air bases and basically potentially be able to bomb places like Guam, Hawaii, and island nations, controlled in provinces of the United States relatively easily, which could lead to a whole conflict and, a war in Asian theater, if you want to think about it in World War terms. So what happened was, at the end of World War II, China and Taiwan got split into two separate countries. So the Mao and the Chinese Communist Party took over mainland China. They were like, okay, this is ours. And then the Kuomintang, I believe is how you say it, although it's spelt like Kuomintang, if you want me to be American. But Kuomintang Party, and sorry if I fucking butchered the shit out of that, took over Taiwan, and they basically stayed. They were led by this guy by the name of Chiang Kai-shek. Anyway, there's only about 13 countries in the world that actually recognize that Taiwan is its own independent nation. Everybody else is like, why do we care about Taiwan? They're basically just an extension of China. And that's basically how a lot of people view them still. And in fact, even the United States only sees Taiwan as a part of China. They still consider Taiwan to be Chinese territory. And everyone really just sees Taiwan as like an extension of China. Like, no one really gives a shit, right? That's pretty much how it's viewed in the world. It's related to this thing called the One China policy, where it's like, China and Taiwan are the same country. That's basically what the policy is. So the fact is simple. Taiwan really couldn't stand much of a chance if an armed conflict were to happen, right? And if it were to come to it, because it's going up against this country in China that spends a shit ton of money on strengthening its defense. And also look at the mere size of China compared to the mere island size of Taiwan. It's tough. One country has exponentially more resources. The other one, not really. Just the Chinese ground military in itself could probably just take over Taiwan. That's the truth. They're recent, like that's the truth. And the Chinese have, incredibly advanced military aircraft that could fly over Taiwan and all these things. And the fun fact, Chinese military aircraft for the last year have been flying over Taiwan in this kind of quote unquote international no-fly zone. They haven't really been doing anything. They've just been flying there. But it's been causing a tension of sorts between the two countries. Like, are you going to attack me? Like, are you not? Like, what's going on? Are we good? And then everybody's saying it's fine, but, there's just that little underlying current of tension. But no military action has really been taken by the Chinese. So nothing super crazy to worry about there. But here's the thing. What everyone in the West, still, America, I bet there's a lot of Americans out there that are like, dude, why is Taiwan important then? Like, why should I care? Why should I care about Taiwan? Like, it's all the way in China and like in Asia. Like, that's so far away. Okay. On top of them potentially being able to bomb Guam and Hawaii, which is very much a possibility if China does take over Taiwan. Here's another thing that's important for you tech bros that work at home in Silicon Valley. You know the things that you code all day while sipping your matcha lattes in your loft apartments in San Francisco? Guess who makes the physical copies of those computer chips and computer technologies and video games and the tech that you use in your house? And not only just Silicon Valley, but all of us here in the United States. Guess who makes that tech, the physical tech, the TVs, the monitors, the iPhones, all of that shit? You know where that's made? A lot of it's made in Taiwan. A lot of those factories are in Taiwan. So you code. You work from home. You sit on your ass. You code. But a lot of this computer stuff is made in Taiwan. Taiwan creates this electronics equipment. And so if that country were to potentially be taken over, you're looking at huge supply chain issues for iPhones, computers, all of that type of stuff. That's scary. But here's the thing. This is also good news for you, for the people that are like, my technology, it could be gone. Relax, okay? Most people aren't really worried that anything's going to happen. Taiwan is chilling. Elected leaders are not that worried about China. They're kind of, they're chilling. Tsai Ing-wen is the president of Taiwan. She's actually a female president. Shout out. One of the few in the Asia Pacific. She basically, so she has gone on the record and kind of been sus about it. And she said, like, let's not misjudge the situation. There's still tension here. Like, let's say that. And she said something along the lines of like, China is continuing their military adventurism. And those wordings are pretty concerning if you are Taiwanese. But a lot of the general Taiwanese public is not too concerned about the potential invasion of China. But also, shout out to her being a female president. That's that's dope. So shout out to you. But here's the thing. Most Ukrainians weren't that worried about Vlad Putin, their BFF, right? They were thinking like, bro, we'll be fine. Like the day that Kiev was supposed to be invaded, according to American intelligence, people were living in the city. People were just continuing their normal lives. They're just chilling. But I'm not saying China is going to invade Taiwan for sure. I'm just saying it's something we should monitor. And there are long-lasting ramifications here. Look at what Vlad's doing in Russia and Ukraine. I mean, did we think that could be in that situation? Did we think that we we're going to see the absolute invasion that's going on? But here's the thing. China's probably seeing what Vladimir Putin's doing. They're backing him publicly. They're seeing what Vladimir Putin's doing, and they're thinking to themselves, they're like, could we do it better? Could we just take over Taiwan easily, unlike the Russians? Or are they scared about seeing the lambasting in the public that Putin and Russia are taking right now? But here's the thing, right? China doesn't like that the U.S. is all buddy-buddy. They've been buddy-buddy recently with Taiwan. And there's a reason that the United States and all its intelligence has a heavy, heavy watch on Taiwan right now because they're worried something could happen because of what's going on in Russia and Ukraine and how close Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin are. It's the fact. But geography here, I mean, we can take it from a geographical standpoint. Geography does work an advantage for Taiwan. They have water separating them. They're about 150 miles from mainland China. So it's not a landlocked type of deal where you can have just troops cross the border, take over, boom. Right? So the logistics of an actual invasion would have to involve the aircraft and all of these things, and Taiwan would have time to prepare. And there's a lot of logistical errors that I feel like could get involved here. But also an interesting piece to note is that Donald Trump thinks that China is going to invade. He said that publicly after he left office. Now, is it credible? Dude, nothing Trump says is credible. It's a fact. Okay, I'm sorry to my Republican viewers out there. But maybe he has a point. I mean, he is the former president. And listen, he's probably trying to get attention. I don't doubt it, right? With him being a former president and all and being all buds with the shitty leaders. But the thing is, he was buds with all these crappy leaders. He kind of had a good friendship with Vlad. Kind of had a good friendship with Kim Jong-un, with Xi Jinping. So maybe he knows something. Maybe he knows a little something. Maybe we should take his opinion and think about it a little bit. But I don't know. That being said, trusting Trump is difficult, and I understand why people don't. But I don't know. DJT. Interesting, man. Interesting situation going on there. Okay. But let's see. I think it's going to be an interesting situation. I think it's going to be interesting next year. It's going to be interesting to see how that whole situation in the Asia Pacific develops because I believe that the only way the United States of America will enter World War III is for two reasons. Number one, China and Taiwan. And number two is Brittney Griner. No, I don't think it's Brittney Griner herself, but I think it's this type of situation that could potentially cause something here. Listen, why is Brittney Griner significant? And I'm going to go through this really quickly. So, those of you that don't know, there's this woman by the name of Brittney Griner. She's a WNBA player, very significant. She's one of the best in the league, and she was arrested, or it recently came out. There were reports that recently came out that Brittney Griner was arrested and detained in Russia for has been detained and arrested in Russia for around 3 weeks now because of the fact that there was some sort of hashish oil or sort of weed oil, for lack of a better word, that was found in her luggage. And this is significant because she's been in detention in Russia for almost 3 weeks and she is an American citizen. Griner is also, in terms of her stature in America, she's no joke, okay? She's one of the best players in the WNBA, and this issue brings about, I believe, two important takeaways and thoughts to sort of consider. Number one, Brittney Griner's a black woman, okay? She's lesbian. She's also lesbian, and she's a black gay woman, and she's not being talked about within media. The main quote going around the sort of big media outlets is if this was LeBron, that's the headline kind of. And number two, an American is in detention within the middle of this Russia and Ukraine crisis. So this is going to be the first. So here's the question. Are there going to be more Americans that are in detention in Russia potentially at some point? Similar to kind of the North Korean detentions that we saw. There was a couple that happened. But let's start with the first point, right? Brittney Griner isn't covered because she's a black woman. 100% agree. I think it's 100% true in my opinion. Listen, Peng Shui wasn't covered. She was an Asian woman. No one really gave a shit. Where is she, by the way? No one cares. No one seems to know. And that story sort of died by mainstream media real quick. Listen, I understand the point that she is in the WNBA, right? And that's not that popular a league when you look at, the numbers and the viewership of the different sports leagues in America, but she's still a significant athlete. I mean, Brittney Griner, like a lot of people know who she is. When she was coming out of Baylor, like she was top pick in the draft. You can even talk to people who don't watch the WNBA. People know who Brittney Griner is. She's got big followings on social. She's also very popular in the LGBTQ plus community because she has been an outspoken ally and an outspoken activist for the community and all of these things. So she's popular in a variety of different communities. But also, I think the first point is less important than the second point. Here's the deal. Brittney Griner is facing up to 10 years in prison for having quote unquote drug possession and drug trafficking going on. But basically all she had was like a couple of like less than an ounce of like weed oil or hashish oil. And Russian authorities didn't even name that it was Brittney Griner. It was actually an independent news agency in Russia that reported it. So Brittney Griner, well, why was Brittney Griner in Russia in the first place, Anuj? Good question. Brittney Griner was playing for an international team, and WNBA players, a majority of them play for international teams in the offseason because the season in the WNBA is relatively short. So a few of those teams are in Russia and Ukraine. Brittney Griner just happened to be on one of those sort of teams, so she was involved. She was in Russia, and I guess she was trying to leave the country at that point when the whole invasion and stuff happened. There's not a lot of details that are public about the whole situation, which makes it kind of difficult to talk about. But the thing I'll say is, like, hopefully she makes it home safely. But here's the question. Is Russia going to take more Americans hostage? Is Russia going to basically arrest and detain more Americans? Like, how long are we going to see more American prisoners? If this situation goes bad with Brittney Griner, like things could be really bad. I think this is where I think like it gets bad. Is like, what if the situation with Brittney Griner gets worse, and the U.S. government could get involved? And when you get the U.S. government involved, right, that's tough. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And a lot of people are commenting, like, what is she thinking carrying weed in a foreign country? But I don't think that should be the main focus of this whole thing. The main focus is that an American is in detention in Russia within the middle of this crisis, right? Things like this have happened and have led to wars before. But let's talk about, like, the recent detentions that have happened in North Korea. There's this guy by the name of Otto Warmler who was detained in North Korea. He unfortunately passed away after the detention, but he was detained in North Korea for quote unquote stealing some poster from a hotel. He was tortured by North Koreans, supposedly by some testimony, like people saw him getting dragged and just tortured by waterborne, all of these things, horrible things. He came out of North Korea basically in a comatose state, and he died a few days after that. Terrible situation. Terrible situation. But here's the thing with the United States government, and I'll wrap the show up on this because we're already in an hour and 8 minutes, which is long. Here's the thing with the United States government. They've gotten involved in some armed conflicts before because of hostage situations, right? I don't think this Brittney Griner situation is going to come to that, where we are, like free Brittney and we're going to send our troops in there to get her. I don't think it's going to happen. And if that does happen, I would be shocked. But I think I think there's situations like this have happened before in terms of like American military getting involved within bigger military, like making the crisis a lot bigger, and like America pushing their military because one of their own is being captured or hurt. I think that's just been a general American mentality for a while, is that like when one of us, or like when one American or like a bunch of Americans are detained. So that's why I'm saying if like Russia continues to detain other Americans, like this is their way of baiting America into this war. I mean, look at the Iran hostage crisis. That was huge. A bunch of Iranian military, like, just kind of cooped up a bunch of embassy employees, left them in there for 400 days. And it was a huge tension between Iran and has been the foundation for relations between Iran and the United States for years now, right? You look at World War I, the sinking of the Lusitania. There was 20 American civilians on there. That's it. And then that was one of the main reasons why America was like, fuck it, let's go to World War I. I know it was a long time ago, but it is one of the reasons, to be honest. And the American military has gotten involved when American lives have been taken and kidnapped before. So obviously, this is something we should consider. And obviously, Brittany Griner isn't to that extreme. And I'll end on this. Brittany Griner could be potentially one of the reasons, and American detention in general could be one of the underrated reasons that we go to war. It could be. It's either that or China and Taiwan, in my opinion. And I think those are the two ways that America is somehow involved within this. Okay. But I don't want to be all negative and talk shit. So that's all we got on the show. Thank you so much for listening. It's 1:21 in the morning when I finish recording this. I appreciate all of you guys for sticking with me here. Hour and 10 minutes. Appreciate all of you. Really, really, really do. Thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, go ahead and hit the follow button. If you're on any other podcasting platform, feel free to leave me a review. 5 stars, hopefully. If it's 1 star, I understand, but I'm going to prove you wrong and make another good episode that you like. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. We talked about a lot. We talked about chicken. We talked about Russia and Ukraine. We talked about Brittany Griner. All sorts of good stuff. Hopefully it was worth the like. Hopefully it was worth the subscribe. I'll be back here with some more after show stuff next week. And I will be back. I will always be back with more content. And I'll always be around. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Appreciate all of you. Love you. Stay safe. And coming to you live from the Bay Area. Signing off from the Bay Area, from my parents' house, Anuj is out. All right. Peace. Episode 27 in the books.